All right, guys, it is time for your week in review, and tonight we've got co-host Mimi Burris, who is back to talk about everything that happened in this week in WWE, and we even give our early Royal Rumble predictions for the men's and women's Royal Rumble matches. So let's get everything started right now.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, the most passionate and authentic wrestling analysis on the web. We've got you covered with every Raw, Smackdown, and NXT show, giving you a no bullshit opinion. We know you love wrestling. We do too. So let's get this show underway.
And that's the bottom line. What? 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
All right, guys, welcome to the WWE Week in Review with co-host Mimi Burris. We're going to get to our conversation in just a minute, which was, I think, really, really good. Although maybe I'm biased because this is my show. I don't think I'd ever come on here and be like, man, that sucked, right? No, but I really did enjoy it, and Mimi is just so good. It feels like she's been podcasting for years. And I know she recently joined the team 2 months ago. But man, it just, certain people just pop on here sometimes and it just is like, you've been doing this for years, right? It just feels that way. So she was brilliant in terms of the way that she speaks about wrestling. She's always just so well-spoken, and you'll have to give her a listen also for her solo show she does right here on the WWE podcast for the week in the WWE Highs and Lows of the Week, Wrestling Highs and Lows of the Week that drop Saturday night, Sunday morning every single week. So check it out, give it a listen, and we're going to get things going in just a minute. But if you're just joining us, thank you. We do about 7 shows a week. We also have an ad-free stream if you're just not a fan of the ads, you just want to get rid of them and not worry about it. Patreon, patreon.com/WWE podcast, or just search in Patreon and it will pop up. For $1 a month. You get the entire library ad-free. Okay, $1. And that will give you everything ad-free, every show that we do. And check that out if you're interested. You can also, if you select the pay-per-view level tier, come on the show and do an entire podcast with me on a topic of your choice. So also on the Patreon side, I'm curious to know, are you guys interested, or maybe just in general, maybe not even on Patreon, or maybe I'll make it Patreon exclusive, I'm not sure yet, but would you be interested in doing a live stream where we get to watch pay-per-views together? Where I would be watching the pay-per-view on my laptop or wherever, and you guys can hear my comments and thoughts as I go. I'm not sitting here I'm not going to be sitting here just staring at the screen, not talking like I normally do with pay-per-views unless something big happens, okay? But I'm saying where I could interact with you guys and we could talk about what's going on. Where I wouldn't bring anybody on in terms of live stream. You can sit there and type, but I don't know, just a thought. I thought about that the other day. I'm like, why don't I do that? Why don't I do that with pay-per-views where I could, sit and talk with you guys about what's going on and my real-time reaction, like in person, no net. If I screw up, it's there. And I don't know. Let me know what you think. You can either tweet me at wrestling_audio or DM me on Instagram at WWE_podcast, or email us at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on that, because it is something I'm considering doing to kind of up our interaction, our live audience that we don't often get to talk to, where I'm doing a show and I can interact in that moment. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. And if it's something you're not interested in, fine, cool, no problem. Okay. Also, if you're interested in leaving the voicemail for the show, if you want to just vent or get something off your chest or be like, your show sucks, whatever, 518-952-0247. I will give you, it gives you 3 minutes. So if you go beyond 3 minutes, it automatically cuts you off. But we don't have any voicemail so far this week. Quiet week in wrestling in terms of in terms of listeners. You guys have been quiet, but that's fine. It's fine. Typically, this is the quietest week of the year for podcasting, and that's just normal. So as things ramp up, though, towards the Royal Rumble, I'm sure you're going to want to get your voice out there and be heard, and you can do that right here. And I'll play your voicemail as I do in the mailbag every single Wednesday. That's when that show drops. So Alrighty, well, I think with everything else out of the way, and we're ready to go here, Mimi Burris and myself discussing everything that happened, almost everything that happened this week in WWE. Again, one of my favorite people to have on the show. She's excellent, and I'd recommend you check out her podcast, Wrestling Highs and Lows of the Week, right here on the WWE podcast show. Alrighty, well, here we go, guys. Tomorrow, there isn't a show planned, but, maybe a quick hits will pop in if something happens. Tuesday, of course, is your Monday Night Raw review. So, until then, guys, I'll talk to you next time. Alright, guys, it is Sunday night, which means it is your time for Week in Review, the WWE Week in Review, and tonight we've got host of her own show here on the WWE podcast. It is Mimi Burris, who is back. She does your weekly highs and lows in wrestling, so she's a familiar voice here on the show, but I'm really glad to have her back tonight because we haven't hooked up in about, a little over a month, last I recall, and it's really good to have her back here tonight. So how you doing, Mimi?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How you doing?
Not bad. I think we can all collectively say that 2021 is here, and hopefully we leave 2020 and all of its issues in the past. And not that really changing the calendar may change our issues, but at least in perspective, maybe it does, and symbolically. So, hey, there's a ton going on in wrestling right now. Tomorrow night, we have Legends Raw, which I'm very curious on your thoughts about that. I don't know if you're looking forward to it or not. I'll jump into that also in a minute. But we also, on SmackDown, we have Roman Reigns killing it. We have KO, who is back yet again for another beating. Jey Uso, who is really, really making a name for himself. We've got a lot going on. Keith Lee gets a title opportunity tomorrow night against Drew McIntyre. But putting all of that aside, all of the stuff that I like to say is kind of playing in the sandbox, I do want to catch your thoughts on the passing of Brody Lee, known in AEW as Brody Lee, known in WWE as Luke Harper, the real name of John Huber. I was curious as to what you thought about his passing. I'm sure you were shocked like the rest of us, but yeah, I wanted to definitely touch base with you on that.
Yeah, we got back. I forget, we were at I think I was at the Future In-Laws, and we got back and I saw it. I was weird. I think Seth Rollins was the first post I saw on social media, and I was like, why is he posting a picture with Brody Lee from AEW? And then I realized obviously what had happened. I mean, it was obviously sad and tragic, and 41. It's sad, and it sounds like he was a really good dude from what everybody else is also saying. I remember I listened to the podcast he was on with Chris Jericho too, and he sounded like just like a genuine guy. So clearly tragic. I think the AEW did an entire show this week just dedicated to him. Actually, my low for the week was the Raw, quote unquote, underwhelming tribute to him. I just thought they could have done so much more. So really sad. And I think, not as sad, but obviously almost on the same level of a company that he was with for 6 to 7 years, barely gave him any kind of tribute. In the company that he was with for, less than a year, right? Gave him an entire episode. And I think they even signed his son or something like that, even though he's, I think, only 8. I might be getting that wrong, but just gave him a future contract and let the son book a lot of the show. So really a lot of props to AEW, and boo-hoo for Raw, because I think that was just, again, underwhelming.
Underwhelming is the understatement of the year with what WWE did, and there are, there's excuses floating around that, WWE wanted to leave it to AEW. Nonsense. WWE didn't want to leave anything to AEW. WWE doesn't concede anything, and for them to only put up a single graphic in memory of John Huber, quote, Luke Harper, and they put his birth date on there. I don't want to hear that it's because, he's not employed in the company anymore, he's with AEW. You put all that aside. That to me was, it was borderline disrespectful, borderline. And AEW did an absolutely brilliant, beautiful, tear-jerking job of putting together what they did. The only thing they did was mention what Tom Phillips and Drew McIntyre opened the show with of, it's Monday, you know what that means, referencing what he always says on his Twitter account. That's all they did. And on the backside, if you looked at WWE's YouTube channel, they put on there, superstars' thoughts, and they put on the best moments of Luke Harper's career. Well, why couldn't you have done that Monday? It almost seems like it's just reactive, just because of all the pushback and blowback they probably got from fans of like, hey, that's all you did. So it's almost like they had to, rather than they wanted to do that, just so the perception of the public doesn't deteriorate. Am I maybe wrong on this?
No, I 100% agree. I actually thought they would have done a little bit more on SmackDown, considering there might have been more of a backlash, but they didn't. So, yeah. No, I didn't see that YouTube special, but I think you're right. It's borderline disrespectful. Absolutely.
It is. And definitely a deserving of one of your lows of the week for sure. But again, at the same time, AEW, absolutely brilliant. I can't watch without tearing up, and it's amazing. So, but now back to the playground. Let's bring the playground back in, because now we're talking pro wrestling. We're talking about that thing we love and the friends that we all have that love to hate it. Professional wrestling. And tomorrow night we have Legends Raw. And I have thoughts. I have very mixed feelings on this. I understand why WWE is doing this. And I can also see the argument of why. Why are we bringing back 70-year-old men to headline a show that should be about the stars of today? And I know it's for ratings. I know they're trying to get eyeballs on the product. I get it. At the same time, they're taking TV time away from what they could be building towards Royal Rumble in 4 weeks. 4 weeks into the Royal Rumble. So I feel both. I see what they're doing, but I also have problems with it. But nonetheless, it's Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. We'll all complain, but we'll still watch. I don't know. What do you think about it, Mimi? Maybe you're more excited than I am.
I wish I was. I think I'm pretty much on the same page. I don't know if you ever watched that. I don't know if it was the Ruthless Aggression documentary on the WWE Network, or if it was the Attitude Era one, or the Monday Night Wars one, or something like that. But I remember there was this part where, I don't know, they showed a clip of Vince at a podium. I don't know where he was. They're making some speech about that, they know that they need to rebuild, and I think they did an official brand split again or something. Essentially, he conceded to the fact that, our show stinks right now. We need to do a rebuilding period, and that's what we're going to do. And then on the other side of it came like the 2000s, early 2000s of wrestling, and so of WWE. And so that's kind of where I see this. Is like, you need to do some rebuilding, build some stars. I don't know, even take a book out of AEW's book and kind of have, I don't know if you need a whole show for like jobbers, but just, I don't know, build some stars. There's minimal star power on the show, and I think that's why you see them bringing back people. But they're getting older and older. You look at Ric Flair; they are getting older and older, and less coherent, as just Father Time does. So it's great to see them, but I don't need any more than a quick appearance. I don't need an entire show about Legends Raw. I would love to see. Why don't you, spend the 3 hours that you have on actually building a couple new stars rather than, all the nostalgia acts.
And I think, it is all about star power on Raw, which, it does have, I would say, more star power in some respects than SmackDown, given SmackDown seems to be very top heavy, with Roman Reigns being absolutely head and shoulders above everyone else, and we'll get to that. But as far as Legends Raw goes tomorrow, look, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, there's no bigger names in wrestling. Yes, you could say The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, but name recognition, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, it really doesn't get bigger than that. Even people who don't know what wrestling is have at least heard the name. They are so world renowned. They are so, their brand awareness it's insanely high. But again, they are bringing, it seems like they just keep going to the well. They keep going back, and eventually that well is going to go dry. It's pretty close to where fans are just going to look at it and go, and just kind of shrug. There are fans every time they bring back Goldberg, who's probably on his way back soon to face Roman Reigns. He said it himself a month ago, and I think The Bump, saying that Roman Reigns is next. So every time they bring back Goldberg, it's kind of the same thing. It feels like the spotlight is being taken away from younger talent. And the argument, though, that Vince and WWE management would probably give is, hey, yeah, we know these guys aren't about it's not about today's product for them. At the same time, you're giving the rub to the new talent. You know, they are the ones who are going to be interacting with these legends and giving the quote rub to that new talent. And I would argue, well, you know, again, these legends are going to be gone next week. You know, it's not about them, but that's probably the argument is it'll have a small spike in rating, not gigantic, and then it'll go away next week. And it's just to, I guess, get as many eyeballs on the product with as many stars interacting with the stars of yesterday. I think that's all it is. And we're on the road to WrestleMania. I don't know. I'm not super excited about it, but I don't hate it. I'm just kind of like, I kind of sigh. Like, I just want to let out a big sigh when I hear it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm excited to see what they do, and hopefully it does pull ratings, and hopefully they do, you know, have some other good matches or good, you know, whatever, promos, anything on the show that, you know, keep people sticking around for the next week. And if it works, it works.
Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre, what's your early call on that?
I think it's a Drew McIntyre win. I hope they actually give it a real finish. I doubt it'll be. I assume that they will have some kind of false finish, and maybe this will lead to the Rumble, though, which I'm kind of upset about because I was hoping to see Keith Lee in the Rumble. But I have a feeling that this is not going to be. If anything, Drew McIntyre is going to go over clean, and that's probably best case scenario.
I would think, yeah, there is definitely a possibility of Keith Lee, Drew McIntyre going over clean. There is absolutely that possibility. I think the strongest possibility is, like you just said, it's interference, and I think it's on behalf of Sheamus, who's going to try to interfere and maybe try to bro kick Keith Lee, accidentally hitting Drew McIntyre, and then it causes the disqualification, which leads to a triple threat match for the WWE Championship at Royal Rumble. I mean, like, that's what I think is going to happen. I don't think there's anyone on this earth that believes Keith Lee is going to win the championship tomorrow night. It's just, there's a 0% chance. Like, I'm not even giving it an inkling of an opportunity, just because it would make zero sense. But it's just really more than anything, a setup for the Rumble, I think, for a triple threat between Sheamus, Keith Lee, and Drew McIntyre. Do you think that's maybe where they're going? Do you have another idea?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I hope they spend the rest of the weeks leading up to the Rumble just building that triple threat match. No, you know, whatever, hocus pocus, anything else, but just those three guys, because that kind of sells itself, right?
Exactly. And don't forget, you mentioned that you want to see Keith Lee in the Rumble. WWE has put champions, even though they had a match that night, in the Royal Rumble. I mean, look what Becky Lynch did. She had a women's championship match and then inserted herself into the Royal Rumble. So it's been done before. Just because the person is in another match, even in a championship match, doesn't exempt them from the Royal Rumble, given that we've seen it happen in the past. So and I'm with you. I automatically think, oh, they're in the championship match. That means they're not in the Rumble. I wouldn't be so sure, just because of what they've done. So, all right, well, let's get to what happened this week, because a lot happened this week, a ton. And even though the holidays are behind us, and typically the holiday weeks are usually a downtime in creative, they certainly didn't really, I think, hold back like they usually do. And I'll start with Roman Reigns on SmackDown, because Roman Reigns, I believe in the last time we talked, really praised what he's done. I don't think he's had a bad week since he turned heel in late August. And that's insane. I cannot critique one thing that they have done with Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and now Jey Uso, who is becoming quickly a very big star. Kevin Owens has been outstanding most times. He had a couple of promos that were very scripted, but in general, their matches have been insanely good. Their match at TLC was, in my estimation, the best match Kevin Owens has ever had in WWE. He is really a nice yin to the Roman Reigns yang. He is a great opponent for Roman Reigns, and they're continuing it. They continued it this past week on SmackDown. Kevin Owens refuses to stay down. He gets a match with Jey Uso. He beats him, stuns him again, and then tries to handcuff him and beat him down, and Roman Reigns makes the save to eventually get thrown off of off in the Thunderdome somewhere through a table. And Roman Reigns and Jey Uso stand strong. So what do you think, number one, about this segment with Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, and Roman Reigns, but also in general, what they've been doing so far?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we were talking about how great Roman Reigns has been, and I agree. I think he's I think there's little to critique about Roman Reigns. I think that's the one thing I was going to say is it's the nicknames that they just keep pounding down our throats. I feel like the main event Jey Uso and, head of the table, tribal chief, I just feel like it loses its oomph, when you just say it over and over and over again. But like you said, I think Kevin Owens is, I don't know, he's got a weird Mick Foley, Tom or Dreamer vibe for me. If you want someone to take a big bump, he's the guy to do it for you. And he's amazing on the mic. And I think, like you said, he's had mostly A+ promos, in my opinion. Actually, I think a couple weeks ago too, my high for the week, not to plug my own show again, here we go, but was him on Talking Smack. And I don't really watch that, but I saw a clip of it and it actually made me want to watch the show. He was just talking to Paul Heyman and he was so, I think genuine is the best word for him. And I think that's why he probably makes such a good babyface, because he just seems so genuine. And again, he's someone you can relate more to than the big muscular Samoan guy. But I agree. There's little to critique about Roman Reigns. If these two go at it again, I'd love to see it. I guess the one thing too I would say is that I'd like to see Roman Reigns look a little bit more like a badass, not need the save all the time. It was almost as if I'd like to see him be able to win a match even if Jey Uso wasn't there. And even if he is there, maybe you make it a little less obvious, or, no handcuffs, no more. That TLC match, if Jey Uso wasn't there, Kevin Owens would have won. If it's a standard one-on-one match, I'd like to see that Roman Reigns still looks like he can go in the ring, and it's not, and he's not just like a Baron Corbin kind of heel. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah, and I didn't think about that. So now I kind of take back. I wouldn't critique anything as you bring up something. I'm like, yeah, they probably could do that. Not every single heel needs to always have help with everything. And I understand that there are certain times that they do. I absolutely get that. And more often than not, heels most of the time should do something underhanded to win. Not all the time. In Roman Reigns' case, though, he is such a legitimate badass, as you said, that he doesn't need help most of the time, but when he does, it's there. They could do more of him just winning outright and then gloating about it and smiling about it, and he's better than you. And that's a better way, I think, to sell Roman Reigns, because it sets him up for even bigger opponents. I don't want to say Goldberg. I know everyone's kind of shuns when I say that, but it's going to come, and we all just going to have to deal with it when Goldberg returns, which I think is maybe Rumble. Maybe they're setting up for a WrestleMania again. Maybe we'll try it again. I don't know, but that is very true. In order to take him to that next level, even though they've done a brilliant job, I do also think that they should not always have him go, oh, where's Jey? He's gonna be in trouble if Jey's not around. I don't always want to feel that way, because Roman Reigns can hang on to his own and he can hold his own. And I think that would be another way to just elevate him. Just because he's turned heel doesn't mean he can't win matches. And to your point about nicknames, that's just what WWE does. That's not really unique to this storyline. That's just what they do. When you look back at Sasha Banks, my God, do we need to hear it's boss time for Michael Cole every single time Sasha Banks gets introduced? Or for the 1,000th time when Roman Reigns, when he was a babyface, have Michael Cole say, the big dog? I mean, it almost became like trolling the fans. The EST of WWE, there's always nicknames that they jam it down your throat because it's marketing. That they believe that is a way to market that particular personality, and I understand that, but it does become very, very redundant, to your point.
Yeah, you just brought me back to the boss and the big giant logos and
oh, sorry.
It's not it's so funny. It's not Michael Cole's fault. It's getting put in his ear, but it just makes you want, it brings me back to Michael Cole when he would read that. Remember the anonymous general manager and he would just get booed out of the building? Oh,
yes. Oh, yes.
Makes me hate him even more. Again, though, I know it's not his fault from hearing, especially what I think on Renee Young's podcast, where she talks about how they wouldn't get out of her ear the entire time. And it's probably being told to him, or it's probably being told to him beforehand to just, again, like you said, jam it down our throats. But I guess on that note, a beautiful transition to, I'm curious on your thoughts about Carmella and Sasha Banks, because it sounds like you are an advocate for Carmella as I am. I always thought she did great, a couple years ago when she had the SmackDown Women's Championship. I don't particularly love this new revamp, but whatever. Carmella's back on TV, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so, and if you have listened to me, I am a proponent of Carmella. I'm not, gung-ho. I wouldn't, die on the hill of Carmella, but I am on the side of supporting this run. And is she a little bit generic in her just arrogant blonde? Yeah, I mean, we've seen it time and time and time again. It is a little bit generic, but Carmella she oozes confidence. It doesn't feel like she's playing confident. It feels like this is really her. I guess that's the difference in maybe past women who have had this personality that kind of blends with what Carmella's done. Carmella feels authentic. She feels like she is actually like this in some respect. She's very arrogant. She's very good at being arrogant. And she's also really improved in the ring. I mean, she was essentially just R-Truth's sidekick for how long, and then James Ellsworth was the only reason she won for how many months, and all that's gone, and now she's by herself outside of her, I don't even remember what her sidekick's name is. I can't remember what they call him. If you can think of it, pop in here. But other than, he's not there to really truly help her, although he did a little bit this week. He's there every week to seemingly take a bump from Sasha Banks that he sells like, Hulk Hogan's punching him. I mean, the way he sells the punches and kicks from Sasha Banks, it's almost comical. I know he can't really retaliate given the men on women violence. I get it. It's PG. But it's almost comical how many times he gets put down by Sasha Banks and oversells it. It's insane. And yet he's doing these flips and he's super athletic. And he's a muscular dude, and just, I don't know, Sasha Banks is just his kryptonite. I don't know. But it is, I think what they've done with Carmella is a nice transition from what she was. I don't think she's a finished product, though. She seems kind of like she's stalled the last couple weeks, and maybe that's because she hasn't got promo time. Maybe it's a sit-down interview. Maybe it's a video package missing to continue the evolution. It feels like she's stagnant right now, and last week. It feels like she's a little bit stagnant, but that can be rectified. I'm not super excited about Carmella, but I do like the Carmella and Sasha Banks dynamic. I actually hope that there's a Carmella SmackDown Women's Championship run in the near future. I don't know when they're planning on taking it off of Sasha. To be honest, as big of a fan as I am of Sasha Banks, I think she's been very underwhelming the last 6 months. Well, no, particularly, let me fix that. She's been underwhelming since she broke from Bayley, because it really made no sense the way the whole thing went down, and all of a sudden we're supposed to love Sasha Banks. And she's the same character she was when she left Bayley. Nothing has changed. She's still arrogant. She comes out to the same music. She does the same poses. Nothing is different. Nothing's changed. So why am I supposed to feel sympathetic for Sasha Banks just because she's Sasha Banks? I just think character management has been poor with Sasha Banks. It's not her fault. But with Carmella, I'm really digging the new vibe that I've got from her. She feels confident. She feels authentically confident. And I just feel like she's stagnant, but they can do things to rectify that. So those are my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It is Reginald, I think, is the guy's name. I just looked that up.
Yes.
That's killing me. Yeah, no, I think probably what they're doing with him is he's probably some NXT trainee who's getting some TV time, and we will probably see him in the ring, in a year or two. I guarantee it, with the backflips and all that other stuff that he was doing. But I'd love to see her without some guy following her, like you said. No James Ellsworth, R-Truth, Reginald. I'd like to see just Carmella, because I think, like you said, she oozes confidence. And I found myself rooting for what was the last TLC, that last pay-per-view, Carmella and Sasha Banks. I found myself rooting for Carmella, not because Carmella wasn't playing a good heel, but I just thought she would be so much more entertaining than Sasha Banks is right now as the SmackDown Women's Champion, and I think having Sasha Banks in chase mode is probably better than Sasha Banks as a champion. That's probably why she loses it usually right after she wins it. But I'm in agreement with you. She's been underwhelming since she left Bayley. I think I'd probably almost rather Bayley still be the champion right now. Not that, in hindsight, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because the match was great, the feud was great, but it just, like you said, it's been underwhelming, and there's not a lot of, Mercedes, I don't know her last name, but Mercedes, like the Sasha Banks, the person, is actually seems like a super likable person. I've heard her on a podcast or two. Seems like a super sweet person, but the character she portrays, again, I don't find myself rooting for her.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, I did love on SmackDown they did Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair versus Bayley and Carmella. I thought Bayley and Carmella had a nice dynamic, and it sounds like they're just throwing women together in tag teams and hoping it sticks to try to elevate those tag team titles.
Which I think is a really good thing. I mean, for so long, since it's been introduced, those women's tag team belts have felt just kind of like they're there because they have to, and they're trying to make the men's and women's divisions equal, and we're just going to give them a tag belts because the men have tag belts, but we're not going to really have any teams that defend it or challenge for it. We're just going to have like one or two women's tag teams. That's the way it was. Or you forgot that the women's tag team belts were still out there. They were just kind of in the background, like the wallpaper. You didn't really notice them. They didn't feel important. I mean, they just didn't. Sasha and Bayley won them at WrestleMania a couple of years ago. They dropped it to the Iconics, I believe, and the Iconics, who I was really, really high on, just kind of vanished into thin air. They'd come back and in and out and in and out. I'm like, what are we doing here? Are we going to go with them? Are we not? And then they break the team up this year just to what? Have Billie Kay do resume shots or try to team with people and just get humiliated and have Billie Kay or Peyton Royce in another tag team, but you just broke her up from a tag team? It doesn't make any sense. I have zero idea why they broke the Iconics up. Makes no sense. But the women's tag team belts, as you mentioned, with the new teams here of just throwing women together. And yeah, Bayley is now a tag team partner with Carmella, at least in the short term. I hope that they do challenge for the women's tag team championship, because I think that Asuka and Charlotte have a good opponents to work with. They are now creating depth in the women's tag team division, which really sorely lacked over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, or even longer. It was just almost an afterthought for the women's tag team championship. So Charlotte and Asuka carrying them, I think, is a huge plus, even though I don't really understand the dynamic between Charlotte and Asuka. That's a whole other issue. But I do agree that those women are making the belts feel more important. That's so important to making me as a fan care about those championships feeling important when a team is chasing them. And now that they're creating more teams, it creates more opportunities for matches, for championship matches, and there's more talent. So I'm a big proponent of that. I wouldn't do it long term because Bayley is certainly a single star. Carmella is certainly a single star. Charlotte's a single star, and Asuka's a single star. So you have these women, as you mentioned, that are all kind of just together for the moment. But I don't think it's going to stick very long because you know that they belong as a single star. It doesn't feel like they're new and upcoming and trying to make a name and they'll eventually break up. No. They came in as single stars and now they're going to tag team when you've seen them be so successful as single stars. It just tells you that, hey, this is temporary, but it's to up the value of the women's tag team championship, which I'm all for.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of got a Shawn Michaels, John Cena vibe to it. Yeah, I think the best bet would be to bring those tag team belts down to NXT, have someone like Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez win them, or I don't know. It just seems like they have much more depth in the women's division down there to be able to have those belts have a little bit more meaning. So, but like you said, I mean, I was super excited to see Charlotte Flair back. She's probably my favorite of all time. I think there's no woman more talented in the ring. But I'm with you. I think this is probably going to be, we can all see it. Charlotte turning on Asuka, losing the belt, turning on Asuka, and then we've got your I don't know, maybe they'll do a rematch at WrestleMania. Honestly,
that was my next question to you. I was going to ask you, when do you think Charlotte is going to turn on Asuka? It's coming.
I assume it will be after, kind of similar to Sasha Banks and Bayley. Kind of similar to similar to Sasha Banks and Bayley, where they'll lose the belts and then Charlotte Flair will turn on her because I think she's obviously, she said it already, is eyeing the Raw Women's Championship, which I think wouldn't be the worst thing to give her back, because I think anything you put on Charlotte Flair is going to elevate it just because of almost name value at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say it feels weird with Charlotte as a babyface. I think she is just, it doesn't feel right. It has never felt right. I am a huge Charlotte Flair heel proponent. she's okay as a babyface, but it feels very forced. It doesn't feel natural. Her smiling doesn't feel genuine. She's born to be a heel. She is her dad through and through, who was way better as a heel. And I am of the belief that Charlotte won't remain as a babyface very long. The thing is, WWE knows that the fans think Charlotte's going to turn on Asuka, so it's going to make me wonder, do they dare to have Asuka turn on Charlotte? I mean, do they dare try to go that road? I don't know. Do you think that's even a possibility of turning Asuka heel against Charlotte?
I mean, I actually would love to see an Asuka heel turn, but like you said, I don't think against Charlotte is probably the right person to do it with, just because, just like Ric Flair, Charlotte Flair is just a better heel, just confident. Someone who is that good is always going to be a better heel than a face, because you always want to root for the underdog, and Charlotte Flair will never be the underdog in a match with anybody. Ever.
No, she's not. And you saw it when she got in the ring at TLC. She showed you just how, I mean, she is so good, and I've missed her. I mean, I'll be honest, in June when she got injured, the injury for me couldn't have come at a better time. I was just week after week, like, Charlotte was just everywhere, and it was too much of Charlotte Flair. Everything was about Charlotte Flair. She gets injured, she's gone for 6 months, and boy, I think that did a lot for her mentally. Physically, she looks better. I think she leaned out. I think that she looks really good. It feels like her batteries have been recharged, and I'm loving what I'm seeing from her, and she just showed you when she got in the ring. I'm like, oh, she's so good and smooth in the ring. And I don't think it's going to be long before she captures that Raw Women's Championship, which has really been in the background for a long time now, really since, I don't even know, well, Lana challenged her for it, but it's been a while since anyone has really put that belt in jeopardy. She's kind of just held it and hid it in a corner for a while, which I had a feeling was waiting. They were waiting for Charlotte Flair to return. But speaking of championships, though, and we'll get back to Raw, but I want to ask you about Big E. I know he didn't win it this week, but this week he was involved in a match with Baron Corbin. And what do you think, number one, about Big E's, again, it's 1 week, but what do you think about Big E's run so far, a week in, and the match that he had on Smackdown?
I thought that having him win on Christmas was, I mean, it was good in one reason of, oh, it's Christmas, good, way to end the show in, like, high spirits, but I also thought, that whole Smackdown was kind of a crap show, just because, why do you have 3 title matches on a Smackdown on Christmas, a pre-tape show? But nevertheless, I am a proponent for Big E too, of winning championships, starting with the Intercontinental title, and then hopefully one day being able to challenge for the World title or the Universal title. I don't think it should be Roman Reigns right now. I think this is a perfect place for Big E. I think Roman Reigns needs to keep doing what he's doing and have Big E in a totally separate world. So we are just, yearning for the two of them to go head to head one day. But I mean, I would even say next year, WrestleMania, like, give it that much time to just, burn out or have a slow burn with Big E. But I think I'm excited for him to be Intercontinental title. I love Sami Zayn. I hope Sami Zayn lands on his feet with whatever he's doing next, whether it's continuing to be in this title picture or whatever it is, because I think he's probably the most entertaining part of SmackDown. But like I said, I'm a big fan of Big E. I think the slow transition from him out of the New Day stuff, the change of the music, he brought back the I forget what it's called, but the stuff that he throws with his hands before he walks to the ring. I think he used to do that in NXT or maybe even when he was with, the chalk. There we go. So I'm excited. I think he's shown what he can do as a single star. I think I like his charismatic style. I think slowly but surely he seems to be kind of becoming his own person. You see little glimpses of a serious side. So I hope they don't make him too serious. I hope they kind of keep the fun-loving side of Big E. But like you said, I think you've said before too, also give him that, like, when you flip the switch, you know what I mean? Like, that he's not someone to mess with in the ring. So I'm excited for it. I hope, I think there's a lot of great people or a lot of great matches ahead of Big E with the title too. I can't stand, and I think they're already doing it with Apollo Crews this week, is the open challenge. Like, John Cena would be rolling in his grave right now if he was dead. I swear that U.S. Open Challenge opened the door for all these, again, open challenges on SmackDown and Raw. It just devalues it. So I almost liked Sami Zayn with the title, because he was like, no, why would I defend it on SmackDown? That's stupid. You have to earn this. And I hope they get away from that, but I bet they will not. And I am sure we're going to see about 5 Intercontinental title defenses before the Royal Rumble.
Now, I was going to wait to answer this or talk about this on part 2 of what I wanted to ask you in regards to Big E in this whole match this week. But since you brought it up, I mean, I don't mean to unload on the whole thing as you just did too. I think you're right that when they saw how successful John Cena's U.S. Open Challenge was, which was really, I remember saying this at the time, which was, my God, like 5-6 years ago. I don't even know how long ago now. When he was a United States champion, it really was the highlight of Raw. Like, I was very excited every week. I'm like, oh, this is a really damn good idea. And WWE went, now we're going to take this, and every time someone wins the U.S. or Intercontinental, we're going to go Open Challenge, guys. No. The more we see of something, regardless of what it is in life, guess what it is? It means less. And this championship matches on Raw and SmackDown are no exception to that rule of life. When you see something more, or when you have something more, there's more available of it, it is valued less. That's just basic economics, basic concept of life. And WWE, for whatever reason, is obsessed. They are obsessed with the championship matches being given away on free TV. I do not want that. I don't understand what their thinking is, that championship matches bring more people in. Well, guess what it also does? When those people come in, they go, we've seen a championship match. We've seen this before. No, the title's not going to change hands. And most of the time it doesn't, although we have seen it happen lately. And it's just really a really, I don't know how to describe this, kind of a backwards, regressive way of trying to get fans to watch the product. It's almost desperation. Desperation's a strong word, but it feels very desperate to always have championship matches on every show. Like you said, Christmas, they had 3 championship matches, of which they didn't even explain how Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens got to a steel cage on Christmas. Nobody ever explained that. It just wasn't important. But now we have the U.S. Open Challenge, and nobody can really dispute this. Every single time that a babyface becomes champion, becomes maybe a new Universal, new WWE, new Intercontinental, new United States, without a doubt, it is science that person will come on and say that they're going to be a fighting champion and they're going to defend this belt. Drew McIntyre did it. We had Big E do it. We've had, go back and listen to everyone that won the championship that week or the week after. That's their declaration. That's their declarative statement. They're going to defend it. They're going to be a fighting champion. To me, no, you shouldn't be. You should defend it when you find a worthy opponent. It devalues the belts to just anybody. Like open challenges. No, it shouldn't be available to anyone, because then what are you holding? You're holding a belt that anyone qualifies for. It's stupid. I understand what they're doing, but at the same time, they don't understand that concept that really, I think, regresses the value of the belt. But so I'll stop there.
No, I 100% agree. I would love to actually see more tournaments. I mean, like, again, another thing that could get run to the ground really quickly, but, how about that's how you can fill 3 hours on Raw, have a tournament to see who's going to face Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship. Little things like that just shows, okay, you can point our finger and say, that's why you're here. That's why you've earned this. That's how you get someone like, an Otis or a Chad Gable, or someone who might not seem deserving of a title opportunity to have a title opportunity, and then even if they lose, you can win in a loss, or be elevated in a loss. So I'd love to see more tournaments especially for the lower card titles. I hate to put it that way, but like I said, I am excited for Biggie. I think it's a good stepping point. It looks like they're taking it slow, and they're not just going to push them right to the top.
That is a smart thing. I think they learned quickly with really the Roman Reigns experiment that it's not a good idea to make someone appear to be the chosen one, skip all the belts that are, quote, lower in status, to just jump to the main event, which is what they did with Roman Reigns, which is one of the many reasons why the babyface push for 6 years didn't work. I would largely agree, or largely argue, that the babyface Roman Reigns did not work, which, look when they flipped him heel. It's been brilliant. So, yeah, the Big E thing, I am excited for him. I want them to continue to evolve his character away from New Day. To your point, though, I don't want him going all serious all the time, and I have been advocating for him to turn serious. But I think I should make the distinction that I don't want him ultra serious all the time. That what got him to the dance was his kind of fun-loving personality. That's what made him a big star in New Day. And I understand that, and I don't think he should completely eliminate it. The problem is we don't have any depth to his personality. We haven't ever seen him get super angry in a promo, ever. It's just always the New Day way of speaking. Everything is emoted, everything is happy, everything's smiling. He has to, yell words. I don't see that in Big E yet, where he has turned super serious in a promo, and that's what I want to see when a storyline is worthy of that. That's, I think, what I'm looking for from Big E, is that next layer to his character rather than a complete change. And but overall, look, I'm excited for Big E. I think he's going to hold that belt for quite some time, probably past WrestleMania. I don't see a reason to take this off of him until after WrestleMania. I think him retaining at WrestleMania would be a big deal. And like you said, all the way to next year's WrestleMania. The problem is we have so many fans who are so impatient, like, Big E, give him a push, give him a push, give him a push. No, I don't think he's ready for the main event of WrestleMania. He's not ready for that. And even if mentally he is, which I don't think he is, considering he's never been in that position, I don't think character-wise it would make any sense whatsoever. I don't think that the fans would completely be on board with this, because it really wouldn't make any sense. I mean, there's other men right now that deserve to be in the main event. Big E is on the way. He's a future consistent main eventer and a future Hall of Famer. There's no question. But Big E is Intercontinental Champion now. It's a perfect landing place for him, and it's a stepping stone, but probably not for 6 to 12 months being in the title picture. I just don't think WWE, as we're talking about this all sounds great, but I think WWE does not have the patience for that. I think that they will probably push it sooner than later, maybe even SummerSlam, him winning the championship, or, I just don't have the faith that they're going to wait, and they have no patience with things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was thinking about SummerSlam too. I would say I wouldn't mind if they did it at SummerSlam if you had him in a rivalry with someone like even Baron Corbin, is the perfect guy where you somehow get a little bit personal, have Baron Corbin say something that's a little bit personal about Big E, and then we see the serious side. We just give more depth to his character, so we get to know Big E past just the fun-loving New Day guy. Then I'm like, okay, so I could probably deal with SummerSlam as long as we, again, just put a little more depth in his character. Because I think, like we said, Big E's great in the ring, that, he's fun, but again, who is, not to sound cliche, but who is Big E, Well,
that's just it. We've only seen the one side, a successful side. Not my favorite, but it was very successful in New Day. There's no question about it. So, I want to also ask you though, Sonia Deville, she's backstage, but that's all we saw from her. She was shown backstage walking, and that was it. What do you think this has? What do you think this means? We know it means she's back, but what does it mean from a storyline perspective? Do you have any idea, any hint, any projection as to where she could be inserted into?
This is on my list too. I loved Sonya Deville. I thought she was showing a lot of promise before she left, and obviously for a bunch of personal reasons we were talking about beforehand. But I almost would have waited to have her come back in the Royal Rumble, have a little shock factor there. But and then she can kind of come back as a heel in the Royal Rumble. I know it's kind of hard for people to make a return and not be a face, as you can see with someone like Charlotte Flair right now. But you've got control. Kevin Dunn's got the audio button. He can just click boo, and now Sonya Deville's still a heel. But I'm excited she's back. It was a little underwhelming on SmackDown again, just having her walk backstage. That's kind of all we got. I would have loved to see a little bit more, like a more impactful return, I guess. But I'm excited she's back. I think Sonya Deville could be a great challenger for the Women's Championship. I think within a year she could, be the Women's Champion on SmackDown or Raw. I think both titles need a fresh face. Even though Sasha Banks has just won it, we talked about her at length. I could see Sonya Deville in that picture real soon. I think she showed a lot of promise on the mic. And we know who Sonya Deville is. She's kind of a little bit crazy, but she's got that MMA background, but she's also done a really good job of building depth behind just I came from MMA, I'm a badass. She's no Shayna Baszler or Ronda Rousey. She's got like a little bit more depth to her. So I'm excited for Sonya Deville. What about you?
Very, very excited, and I hope her personal issues have been resolved. And like I said, with the whole the stalker and the home invasion, all that we talked about. But now that she's back on SmackDown, and I have no idea what she's going to be doing, but I'm intrigued, and I'm okay not knowing what she's going to be doing. I don't need all the answers. I don't want all the answers. I want to be asking questions. I want to be hung from show to show going, I can't wait to see what happens. What are they going to do with this and this and this? That's episodic television, and it's basics, and I'm glad that they didn't do a ton with her. I'm fine with it. And I'm I turned into a huge Sonya Deville fan during the Mandy Rose story, because the way that she all of a sudden just came onto the scene, she burst onto the scene and cut awesome promo after awesome promo. I remember saying to myself, where the hell has this woman been the whole time? Like, where is she? Why have they not given her the mic sooner? And she was just so good backstage. And the things she was doing to Mandy Rose, saying, again, in the ring, she's very good. To your point, I think, and I would put her in terms of the pecking order above Carmella in terms of being next in line for the SmackDown Women's Championship, or at least being the next one to hold the championship. I would love to see her holding that championship. Just, it would be, to me, perfect. I mean, I have nothing against Sonya Deville. I have really nothing bad to say about her. Her evolution during the Mandy Rose storyline was the best thing that ever happened to her, and the worst thing that ever happened to Mandy Rose. I mean, she's on Raw, teaming with, Dana Brooke, and, losing on a weekly basis. So Sonya Deville, that was the best thing that ever happened to her, splitting up from Mandy Rose, not being kind of overshadowed by the bleach blonde girl that Vince seems to have a fetish with. And I'm really, really glad that Sonya's back. If they insert her immediately in the title picture, I would be all for it. I don't know what this is. Maybe she'll declare herself in the Women's Royal Rumble. I'm not sure. But a SmackDown Women's Championship is certainly in her future. And maybe even WrestleMania. I'm not sure, but this to me is probably bigger than we think with her back. I mean, I'm loving her character. I loved it, before she left. So.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to ask you, my next question was, do you think she could be a contender to win the Women's Royal Rumble? Yes.
And the thing is, though, and I was going to ask you, too, who do you think could, and we're 4 weeks out, who do you think could win the Men's Rumble? Who do you think could win the Women's Royal Rumble? The problem is we have so few contenders that are actually announced for the match itself. Assuming Sonya Deville is in the Rumble, I think she's a favorite. And yes, you may have other ones in there, Bayley, but we've had the Sasha Bayley thing. Bayley as champion is kind of, it's run its course, even though, to your point, I would have loved to have seen her go longer with the championship. I think Sonya Deville is an absolute favorite, a heavy favorite if she enters that Rumble. And that's okay. And if she, as the favorite, wins the Royal Rumble, awesome. I'm okay with favorites winning once in a while. I know when WWE catches wind of favorites, sometimes they like to turn things just to turn things. No, it's okay if it's predictable once in a while, if predictable is the right thing. So that's my pick right now, because I had kind of thought that Sonya Deville was off the radar. But if you're going to ask me, I think Sonya Deville's a heavy favorite. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I'd love to see it too. I almost think, even if she got pushed, it seems like a quick push to the top, but I mean, like we said, she was great on the mic before she left and showed a lot of character and depth. And she's a heel, so if you're going to brew her, you're going to brew her. You know what I mean? Even if you're mad that she's already in a title picture this fast, who cares? She's getting heat, So I'm excited for it. I'd love to see it happen. I think, like you said, I think she's a heavy contender. I think my guess is they're kind of I guarantee they don't know who's winning the Rumble yet. So I bet they will see, who, how she does when she's coming back, what the fans think, or what the buzz is essentially about her before. And if she was as good as she was before she left, I could see it 100% too. I could see her main eventing WrestleMania and winning.
Yes. And now that we're kind of booking out to Mania, I'm thinking that we have Sasha and Carmella challenge each other again at the Royal Rumble, and Sasha retains. And then we have Sonya Deville win the Royal Rumble, and then it sets up a babyface versus heel. Because if Carmella is the SmackDown Women's Champion, Carmella versus Sonya Deville doesn't sound as good on paper as does Sasha Banks versus Sonya Deville. So how about that for an early call?
Yeah, I would love to see it. I think, again, Sonya Deville has a lot of promise, and I agree with you. I think she's probably a bigger contender than Carmella is. I think Carmella still needs a little, I don't even know what the word is, probably just work on
polish. Like she's not a finished. She's not finished. It's kind of like, okay, I'm on board, but like continue. Let's keep going here. Let's not be the generic cocky heel. Let's add something. And there's just something. There's an ingredient or two missing. And I have confidence that she'll add it. It just feels like she's stalled, and that's okay. But I'm really on the optimistic side of Carmella. So, okay, transitioning to a little bit of something else on SmackDown with the Street Profits come out and they do a very, I don't know, it's like a talk show or late night show skit. I don't know if they cut off a Jimmy Fallon or whatever they did or whatever Vince saw that week that cracked him up, and he's like, I could see the Street Profits doing that. Something hit them, and they decided to do a Jimmy Fallon late night show deal with the Street Profits, and it ended up getting interrupted by Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. So, what did you think about this segment in particular?
It gave me their old SNL vibes. Remember when they used to do those little SNL skits before they were actually, I guess, in the ring on the main roster? Yeah, I mean, it was silly. It kind of had no point. I was kind of watching it like, when someone comes out and does that, like a talk show or anything like that, someone else is coming out to interrupt it. Though, oddly enough, I guess I wasn't expecting Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler. I figured they'd played that out enough. But I liked the promo afterwards from Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode with, I think it was Kayla Braxton or someone backstage. I thought it was a little, some of the stuff they said was a little bit weird, whatever, but there was intensity, and it was good to see that of them. It made them feel a little bit more like contenders. I'd like to see them hold the belt. I think both Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler are extremely talented. I don't mind the Street Profits. I think they're a little much. I think you said it before, too. I don't need to hear the word fam ever again. But I don't, I think they're good baby faces for a certain demographic. I just think, I don't know. I think it's time for a change and put them back in a chase mode. I think there's a lot of babyface champions going on right now. We're heading into WrestleMania season, and it feels a little bit weird. And I think a lot of these faces, including the Street Profits, would just benefit from being less of like the confident champions to the chasing baby faces, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And I have been on this show and destroyed the Street Profits characters because, again, the demographic is clearly not my demographic of a 35-year-old white male. That is clearly what they're aiming for. And I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me. I don't care about skin color. I know people have asked me. No, I don't care. I mean, I have ripped apart Miz and Morrison many, many times about their characters. It just doesn't appeal to me, and it's not my thing. I have just I don't get entertained from them. To me, it's kind of channel changing, but that's me. In ring, they're brilliant. In ring, they're really, really good, and I can see where Vince is. And some people are drawn to their characters. They're very, very vocal. They're very animated. They're walking cartoons. I get it. But I also really loved the Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode promos you said, because that to me was that was like their declarative statement. That was like we're back and here's what we're going to do. And it's not about jokes. To me, that I know they were playing the heels here, but I loved what Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode did to them. Because I don't like the characters of the New Day, or not New Day, but Street Profits. I was like, oh yes, like it was, to me, I loved it. I loved them getting beat down. But from a perspective of characters from Dolph and Robert Roode, that was probably the most invested I've been in their characters since they've been together. I think that they could be the next tag team champions. As I'm looking back, because I had to Google this as you were talking, I was wondering, when did the Street Profits win the Raw Tag Team Championship initially? And it was March 2nd, 2020. So they won it 224 days ago. And I understand there was a draft and that they traded championships between New Day, and I get it. but they've held the tag team championship now for 224 days. I'm ready for new champions. I just am. I feel like what they did with the Viking Raiders a number of months ago was really, really bad for the championship itself. I'm ready for them to move on from the championships and be in chase mode. That's fine. And Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, I think, are formidable challengers. They're both very good in the ring. Dolph Ziggler cut a promo, probably his best one in like 6 months. And I don't know. I'm just ready for new tag team champions, personally.
No, I agree with you. You just threw me back. I think they beat Seth Rollins and Murphy for the Raw tag team title, right? And I remember watching that match and almost getting like emotional because they jumped in the crowd. It was like this really good moment. And like that's what I think they need again. They need they need another moment like that to bring them through a couple months later on. I just think it's getting, like you said, stale. So I want another heartwarming Street Profits babyface moment, not this constant, like you said, skits and stuff on SmackDown and title changes. Title trading or whatever. I think they need another moment like that. And I think the Street Profits are a team that really feed off of the fans. And I think that this pandemic era, if you want to call it that, is probably hurting them more than others.
It could be. I think it is too. Certainly, I think a lot of superstars are probably affected in different ways, and their livelihoods, their whole characters, everything is based on getting an emotion, a reaction from fans. Everything that they've learned, everything that they do is built to get a reaction. And when fans aren't there, I totally understand the hardship. That must be really, really tough. And I understand that there's crowd noise now and there's fans virtually there, which does help a little bit. But I'm looking forward to, I know I've said it so many times on this show, and we're all looking forward to getting fans back. And do you have any quick prediction, any thoughts on when you think they'll actually bring fans back in a limited capacity even?
I was hoping it was going to be the Royal Rumble, just because that seems like, again, out of all the pay-per-views, the one that seems to feed off the fans the most. But I don't know. I am hoping. I work for a surgeon, so I trust his opinion, whether or not he's in any coronavirus field or anything like that. But I think, it sounds like he's saying by this summer things should be a little bit more back to normal. So I'm trusting his opinion and going based off that for maybe SummerSlam, at least in, like you said, like a limited capacity. That's my hope, at least. What do you think?
I was aiming for the same thing, and not to turn into the news of the day as far as talking about wrestling, but with the vaccine out, it's not available to everybody. They're only doing giving it available to the people that actually need it the most: elderly, frontline workers, nurses. I get it. Makes total sense. So as far as getting it to the general public, when it's widely available and you can just, call, make an appointment, or walk into your CVS or walk into your Walgreens or wherever and just get a shot, or I don't know if you have to go to your primary or whatever, but until that happens where it's just they have more supply than they do people remaining to take it, then I think that's the point where we're like, okay, well, I guess this is it, guys. Let's see what happens, right? So until that point hits, which most people are predicting late spring, early summer, May, June, July, then I think we are in a waiting period. And the good thing is with WWE, they're located right now in Florida, at Tropicana Field. Florida is one of the most just very kind of willy-nilly, kind of liberal states where they're just not really adhering to a whole lot of the restrictions that other states are. So in terms of fans coming back, they're in one of the best states to be in because of the much lower restrictions, even though the vaccine isn't completely widely available yet. So could fans come back before SummerSlam, before Midsummer? Yeah, they could. I would say the absolute earliest fans would come back, even in a small limited capacity, is WrestleMania. I would think that would be a hell of a selling point if, again, done safely, social distancing, masks. The vaccine will be a little bit more available at that time, but they can't go hog wild and just let anyone in that, no masks and all. It should still adhere to those things. And I think that would be a great selling point to not only have it be WrestleMania in Tropicana Field, which is a stadium, but also have fans there to announce to the public, to announce on Raw or SmackDown, whenever they make that announcement in public or maybe in a press release, that they're going to allow fans in maybe a 10%, 25% capacity, whatever it is. I even think that even that small number of fans would be like, oh my God, we get to see wrestling with fans back. How are the fans going to react to what's really going on? Not just this artificial crowd noise that WWE gets to play their, fantasy land of, not worrying about what crowds are going to do. They can just, control the narrative completely. So I think that would be a great selling point for WrestleMania. I think it's optimistic at best, but maybe 10, 20%, if done right in a massive stadium, it's possible.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hopeful, but I'm also trying not to be too hopeful because I don't want to be disappointed. But I think we've talked about it before too. I think WWE is doing the best they can. I actually think AEW has probably mastered this pandemic era a little bit better than WWE. I think just having, even though they have limited capacity fans, I almost feel like even limited capacity is better than a bunch of screens. But I had a friend with us actually to watch part of TLC, and she laughed and she said, "Oh, look, they're on a giant Zoom call." And I said, "Oh, well, kind of. They're virtual fans essentially, but they're not actually making any of the noise."
Right.
So, it is better than nothing. But I think we can all collectively say it'll be great to have fans back, and I'm excited for the summer.
Yes.
On a different note, though, I wanted to ask you about, and I think you talked a little bit about it on your Raw review, but the AJ Styles match with Elias, weird thing, but I love this dynamic between AJ Styles and Omos, I think is how you pronounce his name, and I think it's like really, it's probably the one thing that I'm actually like laughing at when they try to do all this comedy stuff. I'm not a big fan of Jackson Riker as a the person, but I think it adds some new depth to the Elias character, and I thought this match was like really underrated. For whatever reason they were wrestling might have been stupid. The match itself, I mean, AJ Styles could have a good match with a broomstick, but the added effect of Omos and just the actual wrestling in the ring, I thought it was one of my favorite segments on Raw. So I was just curious to hear if you had any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think you're right as far as the underrated part, because Elias is not really known for his in-ring ability, at least what they've shown so far. But Monday night, I think they did a good job, Elias did a really good job of finally showing that he's capable of good matches in the ring. And granted, he's also in there with one of the greatest of all time in the ring. So that certainly doesn't hurt your situation when you're in the ring with an opponent that is known for making his opponents look really, really good. So whether it's that or not, I think credit should still be given to Elias for how well he did Monday night. Probably one of his best matches, dare I say, ever, given that he's had such limited matches or gimmick matches or guitar matches or all these silly, Symphony of Destruction matches. Elias to me is, unless he starts getting more in-ring action, the whole "I'm a musician and you should love me and I have a massive ego," it's already getting very stale. I mean, it's been stale for a while, so he needs to evolve into more of an in-ring competitor and stop relying on the "I'm a musician" type of thing. It's just it's too much character and not enough actual in-ring action, if that makes sense. But Omos, I love it. I mean, Omos, he's starting to talk now, which is good, and I think it's the height difference of the size difference between Omos and AJ that really makes it funny, because AJ knows he can run his mouth and then hide behind the giant. It's a tried and true formula. I mean, it's great. I love the dynamic. It's getting better by the week. I'm not sure almost in a match how he would do, because eventually you would think that he's going to break away from AJ and do his own thing at some point. But right now, this pairing is working for both guys. And yes, Omos is certainly getting the rub from AJ's ability in the ring and his name value. At the same time, Omos is just so magnetic on the screen that, and the dynamic with AJ Styles is so good, but AJ is benefiting just as much as Omos, which is crazy given that their really brand recognition and star power are way different. But I'm loving it. This is a really good matchup that they have right now going with AJ.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I doubt they thought it was going to be as good as it was, but I think you're right. I think they're both benefiting, and it seems like AJ Styles is kind of in the giving back part of his career at this point. But oddly enough, the only thing I'll say about this match was it was weird, and I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was like cheering sound effects or cheering noises being played for AJ Styles during the match. So I don't know if it was just for the sake of the match or if there's a face turn coming. There's something likable about Omos, but there's also something really... AJ Styles has a very Sami Zayn quality about him where he's a heel and he's really good at it, but he's so good at it, you almost like him, but not to the point where you cheer him, but he's entertaining, you know?
That's not a bad thing, but if you're going for true heel heat to be a heel of, a true heel, then that's not really what AJ and Sami Zayn are. Agreed that they are cast as heels, and they have heelish tendencies, but they're so good, especially on the mic with Sami Zayn. I know you touched on it, but I kind of glossed over it. Sami Zayn on the mic is, I mean, the things he comes up with, he's a conspiracy theorist, he's the master strategist, all these things are just damn brilliant, they're hilarious. I don't, if you're a true heel, I shouldn't be laughing or be entertained. Like that's not a heel to me. And I think that's kind of gotten lost over the years of what a heel is. I mean, again, you can cheat to win a match, you can kind of be slimy at times and do things that are underhanded just to win a championship or whatever. But if I don't hate you, if I don't want to see someone really beat you up and I'm not entertained or I'm laughing or I'm singing along or to your catchphrases or whatever, then you're not a heel. Like, in the sense of the word, the true meaning of a heel. So I think Randy Orton has touched it this year. I think Randy Orton has been one of the best heels this year. But Sami Zayn, I love him. AJ Styles, he's, like you said, he's kind of in that same boat, especially now with Omos. That's not a heel pairing. Like, the way that they interact, the way that they have doing things, it's kind of, I don't want to say a comedic break, but it kind of is. And if he's a heel, I shouldn't be entertained by what he's doing.
Yeah, I hear you, and I agree. I don't know I don't know if, like I said, there was cheering on Raw, so maybe there's a babyface turn. I hope not. I like the weird gray area of AJ Styles.
Whatever this is, agreed. Yeah.
It's working. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, moving on here. Sheamus and Keith Lee. I know we kind of touched on this, but Sheamus, I really want to focus on a little bit more now because Sheamus is a guy that we all know the pairing he has with Drew McIntyre. We all know that they've been really, really good friends, and it's true. Like that's real life. Like they literally came up together. If you watch, and I've advocated for this, and I'm not getting paid to do so, but I'm going to advocate for it anyway. Is the Broken Skull sessions with Drew McIntyre on the WWE Network. You really learn a ton about Drew McIntyre, maybe more than you ever thought you knew about him. You learn about his struggles, you learn about his coming up, his firing, being the chosen one, coming up with Sheamus, all of that. So number one, everybody should really go watch that. You learn a ton about Drew McIntyre, and he's such an authentic guy. He is literally the guy that you watch on TV. That's what makes it even better. He loves wrestling, and he wanted to be a wrestler. He didn't want to be a football player, and plan B was wrestling, like Roman Reigns, right? Like, he was literally born to be in wrestling. He had nothing else that he wanted to do. That makes it even, to me, more of a connection with him. Nonetheless, Sheamus is a guy right now that you don't really trust. That they're brothers. They fight like brothers. We've seen them brawl. And then they stop. And then Keith Lee gets involved. And it's kind of weird. Do you see Sheamus like fully turning on Drew McIntyre? Or do you see this kind of being, kind of what I alluded to at the beginning of the show, maybe accidental brogue kick to Drew McIntyre where he was aiming for Keith Lee? I don't know. Like, Sheamus being interjected into this kind of made him a babyface, and you're waiting. You're like, no, this isn't right. Sheamus is going to do something, and it hasn't really happened yet. Yeah,
I think the real, I don't want to call it face turn, but was I think when AJ Styles was beating him up with the chair, it was almost kind of weird. It was like, why is Sheamus in a babyface position right now? But I agree. I think he's gotten a weird babyface rub from Drew McIntyre, and that the Broken Skull session was really fun to watch. It was fun to see Drew McIntyre, and just like you said, it was confirmed that is Drew McIntyre. And I think you've said it before too. Most of the best characters are the ones that the guys or gals are just being themselves, and it's just turned up to 100. I like the dynamic. I think there was a match, and I don't know the pay-per-view, and I don't know the date, but I just remember watching this years ago. between Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and John Cena. And I think John Cena was the champion, and Triple H and Shawn Michaels were like the revamp of DX, maybe, or just friends or something. But right at the start of the match, there Shawn Michaels' sweet chin music to say Triple H. And you see that like look of shock on John Cena, like, oh, you just did that, because you were like, oh, is this going to be like a 2-on-1 match? What are they going to do? And then, you had that shock factor right at the start. And I could see that happening, having this turn into a triple threat and then just getting a quick brogue kick to Drew McIntyre and then, going from there. Or I think it'll probably become about the title. I don't know. I can't see them kind of like having one turn on the other, but I can see them having Sheamus put the title above his friendship with Drew McIntyre, if that makes any sense. So, it's nothing personal. It's just about being the guy.
I'm thinking too that probably the case. I don't think it's going to be very long lasting, given that we're pretty much in WrestleMania season now, which is really insane to think. I mean, I thought about that the other day, like, we are in WrestleMania season. I know that they look at the Royal Rumble event as the true start of the road to WrestleMania, but we are on the road to the Rumble, which is the road to WrestleMania. So we are essentially on the road to WrestleMania by default. And it's weird to think. I feel like we just watched the 2-part WrestleMania that was too big for one night, whatever they said, which WrestleMania is, and I'm glad that they split it. That was a brilliant idea. And if there's no fans this year, I'm fine with them doing that again. I actually really loved the 2-part series where it was watchable for 3.5 hours, whatever it was, or maybe it was less than 3. Per night, and it's like, oh, good, we have this and this to look forward to tomorrow night. It stretched it out. Personally, I really liked it. So maybe they'll do that this year. Maybe they won't if fans are there or not. But I foresee this with Sheamus and Drew McIntyre probably not lasting too long, given that we're in the road to WrestleMania and that Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre is not exactly a WrestleMania main event. I mean, it's just not. So. That is my thinking, that past Royal Rumble, this probably ends and Drew McIntyre gets into his real opponents for WrestleMania. But I don't know. Those are my thoughts. But I want to also touch on a couple more things here, and then we'll close it out. And if you have anything else, absolutely let me know. Miz gets his Money in the Bank briefcase back. What are your thoughts on that?
I was surprised that they did this. I thought they were kind of just going to let it die. But I think I'm in the minority here, where I'm almost not necessarily happy that they did this, but I'm almost happy that he has the Money in the Bank back, just because it adds another dimension to the title picture, just having someone have the Money in the Bank. Like, I thought the whole Becky Lynch Asuka, when Becky gave her the title out of the Money in the Bank briefcase, I thought that was heartwarming and it was a good moment. But then it also took away for the rest of the year your like weird, again, another dimension that you can put into any title picture, any title feud that's going on. There's still that like lurking Money in the Bank possibility. So I'm looking forward to that. And, if The Miz cashed in and was the champion again, I'd almost prefer it, just because, not because I want The Miz as the WWE champion, but because Money in the Bank briefcase has been so watered down that, like, we had this, like, probably the worst match of 2020 was the Money in the Bank match this year, that climbing the corporate ladder. And then, you had The Miz try to cash in and lose. Asuka never even got the chance to do that because she just got the title right after it. There's so many people, I feel like, at this point too, who have cashed in and lost. The first person that's coming to my mind is Baron Corbin. I think even John Cena's cashed it in and lost. And I'm sure a handful of other people I just can't remember right now. So I want The Miz to cash in and win. I couldn't tell you when, probably post WrestleMania. Not because I want The Miz as champion, but because I want the Money in the Bank to have some value again. And I think if they screw this year's Money in the Bank up, then they should drop the whole idea as it is, at least for a while, because again, it's just really been watered down. So I'm a proponent of having The Miz cash in successfully eventually, not anytime soon, but eventually. I have a feeling your opinion is extremely on the other side.
Well, now let me say this though. I see where you're coming from of adding a different dimension. It adds unpredictability. It adds that extra excitement of, oh, could he cash in? The champion's down, the champion's out. Could The Miz come out and cash in now? That I completely understand. I get that, and I agree with that excitement being there for the Money in the Bank briefcase. Typically is there. The problem is, I have zero interest in seeing The Miz as champion. None. Like, I have the completely destroyed Miz and Morrison on a weekly basis, maybe even more than Street Profits, as far as their characters go. The way that they've been portrayed as these kind of middle school / maybe barely into high school mentality, and the way that they have come off on the mic of really just terrible sense of humors, and not even like I want to see them get beat up. I've said this, like, I don't even want to see them get beat up. That's how I know I just want to change the channel. That's not good. Like, that's not heel heat. That's bad. That's bad for business, at least from my perspective. I mean, again, I've been watching wrestling for 20 some years. That's just, I don't know. I hate to say I'm old school at 35 years old. I just don't think that's entertaining. I don't think there's really no redeemable qualities about their characters that I find attractive in any way. That said, The Miz has the Money in the Bank briefcase back. It does add that, like, okay, who's he going to cash it in? And given that he was unsuccessful the first time around and he's getting a second shot here, it would lead you to believe that, as you said, he probably will be successful on whoever he cashes it in on the second time around. The question becomes, who is it going to be against? Because he only has 4 months left to cash it in. It expires in a year. We're coming up on May in 4 months, believe it or not. It's insane to say. In 4 months, it will be May. So, that said, he doesn't have a ton of time to cash it in. So when you look at that and the window is closing, who is it going to be? Because now, if you skip Rumble, you skip WrestleMania, you've got a month to have him cash it in, which won't be predictable. It will be just kind of like, okay, who's he going to do it? Or we're kind of like waiting. Okay, just do it. It's got to be here. It's got to be here because he doesn't have any time left. So there's only 4 months left. It's weird. It's kind of, I don't know. During the fact that it's WrestleMania season, The Miz is not a main eventer right now. I am a huge anti-proponent of the Miz and Morrison characters. In ring, no problem. Morrison in the ring, really, really good. I just don't like their sense of humor. I'm tired of the Miz TV every single Raw. Although this past week they actually skipped it, or the dirt sheet, or whatever other silly format they use to just have somebody interrupt. I don't know. Yeah, my opinion is quite different, but I do see what you're talking about, that it adds that extra layer. But the window's closing, so 4 months is not a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I forgot that it's right after WrestleMania too. I mean, I guess the only way I could see, I feel like I find myself like trying to book WWE out of the holes they put themselves in all the time. But like, I guess the only thing I could see that I could enjoy getting out of it maybe is you have The Miz try to cash in again. This time it looks like he's got it, no problem, easy win. And then you kind of have a, oh my God, I already forget his name, Otis and Tucker. You have like an Otis and Tucker situation where, you know, Tucker screws him, except this time you actually follow up with it and you have like a John Morrison screws The Miz, and you have a John Morrison Miz feud to finally break them up and allow them to do their own separate things, and no more Miz TV and no more anything like that. That I wouldn't mind, I guess. I think the only thing I would say is I feel like if we had fans back by that point, you'd probably side with John Morrison just because The Miz as a babyface doesn't always, or has rarely worked. And John Morrison is probably more of a likable guy just because he's so incredible in the ring. So I don't know. I think that's the only thing I could see as a way for maybe they give an excuse essentially as to why he failed twice. And then you have The Miz in the gutter. Maybe you have that whole, you know, trying to come back from that story. That's I guess the only way I would say I would book it. But otherwise, maybe they have I don't know who, but some babyface beat Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, and then you have The Miz cash in the next night, you know. That's probably the only two ways I can see it going that would be acceptable, I guess, in my eyes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. If I was going to do it, which, I mean, I would have just taken when he got the briefcase off him at Money in the Bank, at TLC, I was like, oh, thank God. Okay, this is over. We can move on. And then I had the botch guy on here. He's like, I don't know. He's like, you know, Morrison was the one that cashed in. Now the Miz. I'm like, no. And lo and behold, here we are. So if I was going to do it, though, your way would probably be the best way, if there is one for my taste. I can't see him failing twice, given that he's given another opportunity. If he wasn't going to get the championship, I don't see a reason to give it back to him. Like, why would they give the Money in the Bank back to him if he's just going to fail again? They would have just been like, okay, this is over. Money in the Bank is gone. So to me, that tells me, okay, they do plan on making him champion, which makes me sad. It makes me very, very sad because I do not want to see The Miz in this current iteration of who he is and the character he's been, which is really a regression back to 2008 when he was tag team champions with Morrison, which they have not evolved from at all in like 12 years, the way that they're acting. I don't know. I'm not a big proponent of it, but what I am a big proponent of, transitioning into Alexa's Playground and The Fiend and Randy Orton. A lot to dissect here, but I'm curious, what do you think about, well, The Fiend got burned at TLC, like just burned alive, and Alexa Bliss is doing these Alexa's Playgrounds, and this past week she invites Randy Orton, but then challenges him to a match, which we all knew wasn't actually going to happen. It was just another segment. And then just begs Randy Orton to set her on fire. What did you think about all this? What do you think about in general?
I mean, yeah, it was shock factor for sure. I mean, it was so shocking. I think I actually got a text from my brother who never watches WWE anymore, but he was like, what'd you think of the TLC ending? Because someone got lit on fire, you know? That was something, and we were definitely shocked, but I guess, I don't know, I feel like we're so far past the line that almost there's not much more we could do that, you know, would be not jaw dropping. Like we've passed the supernatural line at this point. Like, you know, we might as well continue lighting people on fire and having them come back, and, you know, having Alexa Bliss magically appear with a swing in the ring and all this stuff that makes no logical sense. But I guess this is just the supernatural section of Raw. I don't know how you come back from this kind of stuff. Like, who would the Fiend face next, kind of thing. Like, again, if he's coming back from being lit on fire, which it sounds like they're going to have a match at the Royal Rumble from what I've seen in reports, and I think, if I'm correct, it's probably going to be some kind of Firefly Funhouse match. So I am curious to hear your thoughts on that too. But in regards to Alexa Bliss, I thought the Playground segment, the first segment they had on Raw, was not her best. I think it sounded a little bit scripted. I didn't think she did the best job that she's done, but I thought, as weird as it was, the last segment on Raw where she, you know, dumped a bunch of gasoline on herself and threw the trail to herself, I thought her acting was pretty great. I mean, especially for a WWE superstar performer. And it was intriguing, and I was, you know, upset when my TV, you know, when the Raw suddenly shut off my TV, I was questioning, okay, well, what happened? And I guarantee you we will not start Raw off, you know, with what happened. I bet they will make us wait until the end of Raw or something like that. We're just going to pretend that, you know, someone wasn't lit on fire at the end of Raw. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to put my thoughts together on this because it's just so, like, out there and absurd, and something that I've never seen on Raw. We've seen people kind of get lit on fire to do with, like, Kane or The Undertaker, and how many times has The Undertaker been in a coffin and had that got lit on fire? But this is kind of a whole new. I mean, they lit the Fiend on fire, straight up. Obviously, it was a dummy, but I mean, I don't know. It was straight out of left field. So I guess I'm enjoying it. I'm almost kind of just waiting to see how they're gonna wrap this up with a bow, because I can't imagine any. If he legitimately lit Alexa Bliss on fire at the end of Raw, I don't know how they come back from that, if that makes any sense. But tell me your thoughts, and I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on if they do some kind of Firefly Funhouse match at the Royal Rumble, because I know you were not a big fan with that, with the John Cena.
Oh. Well, yeah, you're opening up a big can of worms with the Firefly Funhouse at WrestleMania. That I had two co-hosts on here that were very against what I said, and they loved it. I hated it, and I understand the creative behind it, which was a brilliant. It's like there's so much that went into that match thought-wise. I commend the thought on that. I commend the details and the depth of which they went to show John Cena's character and the flaws in his character and all the little inside jokes and nuances. I appreciate the effort. The depth was crazy. It just became completely unbelievable. Like I just got taken out of the moment. It was just bizarre, wacky, acid trip type of match, but I'm going to go down a rabbit hole with that. As far as what we are dealing with right now with the Fiend, yeah, they lit him on fire. So what? Like, the thing is, like, you've gone to the complete extreme, and I've said this in my previous shows. Outside of putting a gun to his head and pulling the trigger, that's how far you've gone. So what makes anyone think that wrestling moves are going to take the Fiend out at this point if lighting him on fire isn't working? So, because he's coming back. I mean, he's coming back, probably with some kind of modified mask, a burned mask, some kind of, I'm sure the mask is going to be awesome. He can't come back exactly the way he left. The extreme circumstances in which he was left at TLC, you can't come back in the way that you were left. So some kind of metamorphosis, I think, some kind of very cool metamorphosis is happening with the Fiend. The problem becomes, it's not watching pro wrestling anymore. It's like watching even a horror movie that you're like, but that's not really believable. So you've taken it out of even pro wrestling believability, which is hard to do, and gone to this place that's like that you can't even get invested emotionally because you can't. Your brain is just like, no, I'm sorry, like we're not going there. This is completely absurd. So it's taken us to an absolute extreme, and yes. People are going to say, as you said, like with Undertaker and Kane, they used fire. They had an Inferno match. I remember that Inferno match in 98, I think it was, 98, 99. And Kane had his arm on fire, I believe it was. But that was done, it's almost like that was done like in a very classy way, whereas this is just like, let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. There's a big difference between Undertaker and Kane and The Fiend. That said, I don't know where the hell they go with this. If fire doesn't work, what is going to work? They've, as you said earlier, they've kind of booked themselves into like, well, what the hell are we doing next? I don't know. I don't hate the storyline. In fact, I think it's very good. Randy Orton is just a complete. It's like he's reinvented himself with how good he's been in 2020 now into 2021. He's just so damn good, and he's making it really good. I think it's. Right now, Randy Orton is waiting for Edge to return. I think Edge is possibly returning at the Royal Rumble, which will take Randy Orton out of this program. Maybe he'll conclude this at Royal Rumble, which I think he will. And then Edge is right on the horizon. Maybe he makes his debut the next Monday night on February 1st, Monday Night Raw. Edge makes his return. That's very possible. And that's likely. But the Fiend right now is gone. Alexa Bliss is hinting that he's coming back, and he is. Alexa Bliss just begging Randy Orton to set her on fire. The one thing I'll say about Alexa Bliss, you're right, her first segment wasn't the best, but her last segment was so good that she made me a little concerned for her in a way that's like, no, don't do it. Like, I felt like a child watching somebody like, no, don't do it, like watching a movie. And Alexa Bliss also did something Monday night that I think was very important. And I know you listened to my Raw review, but if you guys didn't, then here's what I said: that Alexa Bliss added something else to her character, and that's anger, because she has been this kind of happy-go-lucky, smiling but evil girl that's following the Fiend and possessed by the Fiend. But she added this element of anger and just complete fury in her eyes that wasn't there before, that I think is also just so well done by Alexa, and it added that next layer that was needed. I think she needed to kind of show something else, and she did. And man, when she gets angry, I get a little scared sitting at home.
Yeah, no, like you said, she did do a really good job, and I'm with you. It's kind of like, where do they go next from this? And I'm looking it up now, and I think I'm right. It says, if you take it with a grain of salt, but according to Wrestling Observer, that Randy Orton and The Fiend will be in a Firefly Funhouse match at the Royal Rumble. And I guess my thought is, you say Edge, and I'd like to see Edge and Orton go at it again, when he comes back, but after John Cena and Bray Wyatt had the Firefly Funhouse match, John Cena went away, so what, does Randy Orton come back, the next night on Raw? I guess, does Randy Orton win the Firefly Funhouse match, whatever it's going to look like, if it is going to be that, if they stick with that plan? I mean, I know WWE changes plans last minute, but this is obviously something that takes some production. I think, as I'm not a fan of the cinematic matches or anything either, but I feel like you've this is almost like you said, horror movie-esque. So the only place to kind of go seems in this realm or this area is a cinematic match, whether it's a Firefly Funhouse match or something else. Because, like you said, what do you do between the ropes? Like, what are they just going to have a standard, the second greatest wrestling match of all time? It just doesn't make sense after you've lit a man on fire. So I don't know what they do with the Firefly Funhouse match. I mean, Randy Orton has pretty much been the same throughout his career, just different, shaved head and then a little bit of hair and then a shaved head and then a little bit of hair and maybe different colored trunks, but more tattoos. But Randy Orton's pretty much been the same since, Evolution. So I'm curious to see what they do with it. I'm sure it'll be entertaining, but, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't feel like pro wrestling to me. And I don't know, if I wanted to watch a horror movie, I could watch a horror movie, and I think Alexa Bliss is doing a great job, and she's probably got a great acting career ahead of her, but I don't know. I think, they're doing the best with what they got here, but I think they're booking themselves into a corner again, and it's, I'm curious more so to see how they get themselves out of this than to see really what's going to happen with this match.
That's isn't that funny? Yeah, I'm wondering from a creative, I want to see what their solution is, like from the writer's perspective or Vince's perspective, more than I really care necessarily about the Fiends. I get what you're saying. Yeah, because I want to see, like, once you go there, like, you can't take that back, and there's nowhere to go. If you go backwards to wrestling moves, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you're telling me an RKO is more devastating than lighting somebody on fire? I don't know. So I am very curious, where they go, and I'm very curious as to the look of the Fiend. If the look of the Fiend has to change, given the fact he was lit on fire. So I'm very interested to see what Bray Wyatt and the creative team have come up with in terms of his clothing, his mask, what it looks like. That I'm very interested to see. Maybe his entrance music gets even darker. I don't know. But if that is true, that they're doing a Firefly Funhouse match at Royal Rumble, then I will just, I don't know, drink a 6-pack, I don't know, something. I will do something to make my mind just out of my body and go, okay, without hating this, I'm going to try to understand what's happening. So I'm not a fan of the cinematics. I know everyone raved about the Boneyard match, and which I thought was okay in retrospect. The TLC or the Money in the Bank was probably the biggest offender of all. I dislike that more than even the Firefly Funhouse. But yeah, it makes sense. They probably don't have too many more times that they can do the cinematic matches, given that, the window's closing, hopefully, in the COVID era where fans aren't able to be there. So I would think that in the next 6 months to 12 months at the latest, that they probably have left to play in their little sandbox of let's do movies is essentially what they've done. So yeah, whatever. Like, if they want to do that, that's what they'll do. And Randy Orton will move on to Edge. I don't think Randy Orton will disappear. I think that Randy Orton is showing an even more sadistic side of him, which, I mean, he had the match to end Raw. The question was, did he drop the match into the gasoline and light her on fire? I mean, assumingly no, but they ended it very interestingly. That was like the closing image of Raw was Randy Orton holding a burning set of matches. And so I don't know. I say all this, and yet I'm still very interested in the storyline. So they have me hooked. I mean, so there is that. One last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll toss it to you. Dana Brooke versus Shayna Baszler. I know that was a match that happened this past week on Raw. What do you have to say? I mean, Dana Brooke has kind of been like this perennial loser of a match. She has yet to really get that, quote, push. Shayna Baszler has been with Nia Jax, I think, doing a decent job, although they're both, I think, solo acts, but they're a dominant team together. What do you think about Dana Brooke, Shayna Baszler, and where they're at?
Yeah, I love how you ordered that. Dana Brooke had a match this week. That's about it. And I'm a fan. I have to say I'm a fan of Dana Brooke, and just the idea of, I think she's athletic. I think she could probably do a lot more polishing in the ring. And though with all that being said, I have to say, I think there's a lost art of like jobbers in WWE. I think there's so much 50-50 booking that no one looks weak, but also no one looks strong. And so when you have someone like Dana Brooke, I mean, I don't know, I remember how long this match went, but I think it went too long from what I remember, and the idea that this is Shayna Baszler, right? The woman who eliminated every other woman in the Elimination Chamber match, practically killed Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott. I think the only one who kind of stood sort of a little bit of a chance was maybe Natalya and Asuka. And she looked, and I loved that. I loved how they booked her then. And then, she lost to Becky Lynch, and now we're here. And so I'm with you. I think the tag team has been okay. I think they probably could have done a better job with, you've got two people who are probably the most easily booked, form-built tag team that you could have. Like, Shayna Baszler, who's, like I said, a legitimate badass, or who was at least, and Nia Jax, who's the biggest woman on the roster. That seems like a tag team that should be beating everybody in their sight. So I get why, I guess it could be a little upsetting to see someone like Dana Brooke losing over and over again. But at the same time, I think if you don't have people losing, then you're not having people winning, if that makes any sense. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts too.
Well, Dana Brooke, when you see Dana Brooke, you immediately think, okay, she's the one taking the pinfall or submitting. Like that, and I hate to say that, but what else am I supposed to think? WWE has educated me to think that, and with good reason. I would love to see Dana Brooke's win-loss record. It's got to be abysmal. I think Dana Brooke could be one of those women on the roster that fans quietly get behind if there's a storyline that presents itself, because she has been on the roster for a long time now, several years, and she has certainly lost her fair share of matches. And if given an opportunity where kind of like that underdog story, I think the fans would rally behind her, because they have, I think, gained a certain amount of respect for Dana Brooke, because she has gone to the bottom and she continues to be there and she continues to lose matches. But she has that quality of like, okay, well, if she shows something, shows a little bit of fire in her promos, or she gets that small opportunity, that's little seed, it could grow into something really big, I think. And will that happen? I'm not saying it will, but I think the potential is there. Shayna Baszler right now is, again, mitigated to a tag team with Nia Jax, and I don't hate it. I really liked when she was breaking people's arms. That to me was really a more enjoyable Nia Jax, or an enjoyable Shayna Baszler. But where she is now is fine. I mean, she was tag team champions for a while with Nia Jax, and I didn't hate it. But I think ultimately the success will lie in both women being solo stars. So that's really my thought. And I know I didn't really talk about the Hurt Business or Jeff Hardy or Riddle and the New Day. Did you want to cover that, or?
Oh God.
Or just like your overall, like the New Day and Riddle and Jeff Hardy versus the Hurt Business that took place on Raw.
Yeah. Before I jump to that, I'll tell you I looked it up. Dana Brooke's win-loss record in WWE at least is 55 wins to 135 losses.
Yikes! So 3-1. Okay, roughly 3-1.
Exactly.
All right, it's about right. Actually, that's more wins than I thought, but okay.
I know. A little surprised by that too. It doesn't, but like you said, she's pretty much mitigated to that one spot, and I think that's okay for a while. I honestly think you can come back from that. Remember Kurt Hawkins and how much? I mean, it was underwhelming to an extent, but when he finally won I think he won the tag team titles with Zack Ryder. That was years ago, but he was on like a 200-something losing streak, and the fans kind of got behind him. Like there is a way to do that. So I would be fine to see that one day, because I think she's got the look and she's blonde, so that she's got that going for her with Vince McMahon.
That's true.
In regards to Matt Riddle, Jeff Hardy, the Hardy Bros, and the New Day and the Hurt Business, I think you've talked about it as others have too. I think the Hurt Business is great, and I think I love Cedric Alexander on the microphone. I think he's probably the one to me who has the most heel heat out of anyone, just because he seems like such a word that I probably can't say on the show. Like he's just he's the small guy in the group, and he's got too much confidence for his own ego, and he's aligned himself with the big guys. He seems like the little guy on the playground. He's got all the big guys around him. It's kind of like an AJ Styles thing, and now all of a sudden he feels like he could take on the world. So I love the Hurt Business. I think they're doing a great job. I think Matt Riddle and Jeff Hardy, I think it's an odd pairing, because here you have sober Jeff Hardy and you have a guy whose gimmick is that he's high essentially all the time. He's like a bad RVD. So it's an odd pairing if you think about it that way. But whatever. I mean, it's something. I think when WWE doesn't know what to do with someone, they throw them with someone else they don't know what to do with, and then they say, give it your best shot, and maybe 1 out of 5 times it gives us a good storyline or a new star or something. But I think Matt Riddle probably needs to develop his character a little bit more into a little like kind of like a Big E thing, just get a little bit more serious. I don't mind the humor. I actually kind of chuckle every now and then. Maybe his jokes hit for me like 1 out of 3 times, kind of like Dana Brooke winning a match. But Jeff Hardy, I don't know about you. When I watch him go to the ring, and I love Jeff Hardy. When I was a little girl, I had those the little things you could buy on the WWE shop, the armbands of his.
Yep.
I loved him. He was like a little rock star, but it's almost painful. Like I feel like secondhand pain watching him walk down to the ring. He just looks like he creaks almost. Like he walks, he just looks like his body's taking so much damage, probably in the ring and probably outside of it too, that it's almost hard to watch. It's just, I feel like it's like watching Ric Flair cut a promo. I just want to be like, you did your job. You're in the Hall of Fame. I understand this business is probably hard to walk away from, but it might be time, just because, he's no Randy Orton. Randy Orton looks as good as he ever has, but Jeff Hardy just has taken almost too many bumps probably for his own good. So, it's a filler segment for me. I think the Hurt Business is having all the gold is good. I think they should move on to bigger and better things than the Hardy Bros. But I think hopefully the Jeff Hardy and Matt Riddle probably just job for the Hurt Business, so we can make them look even stronger. What do you think?
So yeah, the Hurt Business, I continue to sing their praises, and I think that they are improving every single week. The way that they are presenting themselves, MVP should be credited with really keeping all of these men relevant. MVP has been so damn good, more than I could have ever expected, more than I'm sure WWE ever expected him to be upon his second return, and putting this group together that I'm sure WWE had no idea would grow into what it is today, and maybe continue to grow, and hopefully will. And I don't want any dissension. I've said that before. I don't want any dissension in terms of actually splitting this group up. I feel like they're just getting going, and them holding all the gold is good. MVP, again, the mouthpiece of the group. They have somebody that can really talk. I think in terms of being able to speak for Shelton Benjamin, who's not that great on the mic. We have Lashley, who we've all seen how bad he is on the mic. I mean, he has very limited capacity on the mic, no question. So MVP right there to kind of help things along. Cedric Alexander is, as you said, he is showing what he can do on the mic, and he's kind of being that aggressive young guy in the group, and that's fine. That's fine. I think that makes sense. But I don't want these guys to break up. They are just getting going, and I keep teasing that tension between Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. So this is great. I love where the Hurt Business are right now, and I hope that it continues. The New Day, I mean, I don't even know what to say about them. They're just kind of there. Riddle and Jeff Hardy, the Hardy Bros, yeah, they're like the I guess the potheads of WWE, like that, and they're very familiar with recreational drugs. I mean, and that's documented, and they've said it many times. Like, this isn't just like me speculating; it's true. And Riddle is, since they took his first name away, has just been kind of like this goofball of, like you said, he's just cutting jokes and making nicknames for people that, for me, hits like 1 out of 10. So I'm a bit of a different ratio than you are, but I don't find him endearing. I just find him kind of like I don't want to say, he's not a D-bag, but he's like just kind of obnoxious, but he's not a guy that like I would want to hang out with. Maybe it's my own cynical personality. I don't know, but Riddle is not in the ring. Look, in the ring, no problem. In the ring, I love what he does in the ring. He's physical. He's believable. He has actual background, like athletic credentials to back him up in the ring. That's all great. And that I think will help him down the line. But I'm not a fan of this kind of like, chill, bro, everything's going to be fine, bro. And putting bro in everything, bro nuts and bro, like I don't need bro in everything. They're burying that. Jeff Hardy, yeah, I cringe every time he takes a bump. I mean, remember that bump that he took? I don't know, it was like a month ago when he jumped off. Yeah. And I thought he died. I mean, like he landed on the back of his neck on the ring steps. I was like, oh my God. I mean, we all held our breath. So Jeff Hardy, just at this stage in his career, doesn't need to do any of that. In fact, does he need to do anything at all? I mean, I would argue no. Like, you know, he can still go at like maybe 60% of what he did, and I commend what he's doing, and he's trying to make money and support his family, and I understand that completely. But I get scared for the bumps Jeff Hardy takes, given the fact of all the mileage he has on his body. Oh my God! I mean, the thousands and thousands of bumps over 20 years. I mean, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard to watch, and that bump was scary. I remember we both sat up, thinking, "Oh my God, is he all right?" And then he's on Raw next week.
Yeah,
you know,
I know. I know.
So.
Yeah. Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on before we close things out?
So I'll put you on the spot, I guess, like you said, before we close things out. And I know it's a little early, and I think you kind of mentioned here and there, but can you muster up, if you were going to guess, you know, there's not a lot of people who have officially entered, so I'm giving you 3. Your top 3 for men and women, who do you think could win the Royal Rumble this year?
Ooh. I think top 3. Wow. Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, and believe it or not, Drew McIntyre are my top 3. I know Drew's a champion, but I think, and again, it's going to depend on Goldberg and all that, but I think that they could get to a Drew versus Roman WrestleMania main event. And if Drew drops the belt at Rumble, or even if he doesn't, maybe he is somehow able to cross brands, they'll find a way to get to Roman versus Drew again. And I think if they don't have a legendary star returning for Roman Reigns, I think Drew versus Roman is a shoo-in. And I think maybe that's how they get there. The women, Sonia Deville, obviously number 1. I mean, Sonia Deville to me is a far and away favorite. I'm sure she'll have some contact with Mandy Rose in there too. Lana, I don't know where she is. I would say Nia Jax. I'm thinking of like the final women in the Rumble. Like when I look at the final 3 standing there, Nia Jax, Sonya Deville. Oh boy, and it depends if NXT's gonna. Am I ignoring NXT? I don't know if they're competing. Wow, and Charlotte, I think, are the final 3. You know, but boy, yeah, that's hard. It's really hard right now. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think probably harder for me for the men's than the women.
Yeah.
But for the women, I would include NXT just because I think they at least need 1 or 2 of those women from NXT to come in the Royal Rumble to make it, you know, as special as it was last year. I think that was probably the best women's Royal Rumble was last year. It was just so well done, and mostly again because there's just so much talent on the women's roster in NXT. So I would say I'm with you. I could see them doing Charlotte Flair to have a back-to-back, you know, be able to say that Charlotte Flair won 2 Royal Rumbles back-to-back and the only woman to do it. I'm with you on Sonya Deville. And I think my 3rd, I want to say Bianca Belair, but I'm going to change that. I think I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
I could see her, you know, if Charlotte gets the Raw Women's Championship from Asuka, I could see Rhea Ripley coming back up and maybe they avenge that loss because I really think Rhea Ripley should have gone over there. So, and like I said, I love Charlotte Flair, but I think that was probably not a great booking decision in hindsight. So I could see Rhea Ripley coming up and then winning this year.
Or Shayna Baszler losing to Becky at WrestleMania, yeah.
Oh, yes, exactly. Same kind of deal, and look where they are now.
Yep.
Maybe I think Daniel Bryan's on mine too because I can't imagine him never winning, you know, a Royal Rumble match in his whole career, and it seems like he's kind of on the ending side of it. So Daniel Bryan, maybe Keith Lee, and the only one I want to say Sheamus, but I can't imagine Sheamus being in the main event of WrestleMania. So maybe Randy Orton. Maybe they push Randy Orton again. I don't think it would have I think there would be some backlash to that, but I think Randy Orton could have a chance.
Oh, yeah,
That's
no,
early pick.
It's so hard, and people keep asking me, and I'm like, they haven't really announced that many people. We're 4 weeks out now. I would think in the next couple weeks we'll have a much clearer idea. But there's always those surprise returns, you know, like Edge, but Edge isn't going to... I don't think Edge wins the Royal Rumble even if he comes in, because it wouldn't make sense, because he wants to go after Randy Orton, who's not a champion. So maybe Edge isn't even involved in the Royal Rumble at all. That's why I'm thinking the next night on Raw. I mean, Goldberg could come in and win the Rumble and then face Roman Reigns, but imagine the fan backlash of Goldberg winning the Royal Rumble. I don't think that's a smart business decision at all. So yeah, I mean, there are those random dark horses that come in and potentially returns and things like that. So this is right now, this is one of the hardest Royal Rumbles to pick. And yeah, we're 4 weeks out, but in past years, you're always thinking, oh, well, it's going to be this person to win the Rumble. Like, you have a pretty clear idea, even like a month or two out, that person's the biggest favorite to win the Rumble. This year, it's a crapshoot. I have no confidence in my picks right now.
Yeah, I'm agree with you. Who knows? It might be a member from Retribution.
Well, we can hope. I mean, yeah, we can all say our prayers on that one. Let's all kind of collectively get together and say a prayer that it is somebody from Retribution. And I could not be more sarcastic if you guys aren't reading through that. So, oh God. And they're just being relegated to really, I mean, complete omnipotence. I mean, they are just irrelevancy is really where I was going with that. They won a match or two, and Mustafa Ali is winning here and there, but they're not even on the Hulu version of Raw, which tells me WWE is cutting them out of the importance factor. So, yeah, that is a storyline dying a very slow death.
Exactly. That'll happen when Tamina wins the Women's Royal Rumble.
Yes, please. Yeah, I don't even want to get into that. That is one of the biggest offenses that WWE has ever created in their storylines ever. But all right. Well, any last minute comments or thoughts, Mimi, before we head out here?
I think that's it for me.
Cool. Well, it's been a blast to have you on, and I know that for those that don't know, she does her own show for the highs and lows of wrestling in the week that I actually just dropped. Was it last night or this morning? I can't remember. Everything's blending together. But it's typically Saturday night, Sunday morning that we drop the wrestling week in review, or the wrestling highs and lows that she does on her own. So check that out. But did you have any social media that you want to share, or any shout outs?
No, I think
No?
I'm pretty boring about the social media, but I do have to say, if I can give a shout out to my brother Brendan, who's been very sweet and is always asking me when's the next show dropping, and always giving me a listen and sending me a nice note. So shout out to him. He's always been very, very supportive. Let's put it that way. Awesome.
Well, Mimi's brother, what's his name? Brendan. Shout out to you, man. So your sister does a great job. So keep it coming. She does it every single Saturday night, Sunday morning. So all right. Well, Mimi, thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure talking wrestling. 2 hours. I mean, 2 hours talking wrestling. It's crazy. I say this every time, but wrestling just makes time go so fast. And I'm glad to have you on. I'm glad that you're happy, you're healthy, and that things are going well for you. And we will definitely do this again for sure, especially considering we are now officially into WrestleMania season.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Mimi. Take care.